So this is my last mock draft of 2024.
I'm back.
What's coolin'? What's going on? It's finally here. The final mock draft of 2024. I can't wait for 2025. Really, the draft season is just beginning, in my opinion, where we're yet to see all the free agency stuff, the Senior Bowl and all those things cooking. But I figured let's go out with a bang for the 2024 season. I'm going to do a what I would do mock draft. I'm in control. I'm the GM of your football club, as scary as that may seem.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
But yes, it's going to be 2 rounds because I feel like it all comes together a little bit more, especially in this quarterback class. You know, I feel like you need to expand it to 2 rounds. So let's go ahead and enter the draft room. Here we go. And let's start this thing up. New England Patriots, number 1. What would I do? I'm taking Travis Hunter. This is an easy one for me. I'm taking the best player available in this draft class. I think he's a generational level prospect. And it's like, don't pass up on those guys that are unique unicorns. And that's kind of what happened with Brock Bowers. I feel like this past draft, teams were like, well, should we pay a tight end? Should we draft a tight end? What do we know? What are we going to do? Is he a wide receiver? Is he a tight end? What is Brock Bowers? Just take good football players. And that's what we're doing with Travis Hunter. He's going to be a 2-way phenom for this New England Patriots team that just needs influx of talent. And then for the Tennessee Titans, we're going quarterback, right? Wrong. No. We're going to go ahead and take just one of the best players in this draft. And this is a team that still has a lot of areas that they have to figure out. And it's like you need offensive lineup. You need defensive lineup. There are maybe another receiver for sure. Absolutely. You could go McMillan, Graham, Carter. There's just so many options. I feel like for this team, I'm not forcing a quarterback, especially in this draft class. Do I feel 100% confident that you're going to find an upgrade over a quarterback between Will Levis or even Mason Rudolph? But it is what it is. I'm going Abdul Carter. He is an unbelievable player. There's no way I'm passing up on Abdul Carter. I would call myself crazy if I was doing that. And then on to the Cleveland Browns here at number 3. And this is one where I just feel like, I know the quarterback, running back, you look at the offense side of the ball, offensive line, certainly all in play for this team. But there's just, Ashton Jeanty it is very tempting to go after Ashton Jeanty. Even at number 3, I still wouldn't hate that pick. But I am going to take a cornerback or even Mason Graham. I think that's what it came down to for me was Mason Graham, Will Johnson. I'm super high on Benjamin Morrison. I do want to see and continue along with that injury report. That's really my biggest question why I wouldn't take him at, number 3 over Will Johnson at this point. But it is neck and I think Benjamin Morrison actually a better player than Will Johnson. However, with that injury risk, it makes me go ahead and just say, let's take Will Johnson for this Browns team. And their secondary, they have allowed, I think, the most explosive plays in the NFL. I don't quote me on that completely, but just from watching the games, I feel like they're always allowing some sort of explosive play. Now, maybe not this week versus Miami and their offense because it was a little bit hindered. And, obviously Huntley was playing. Huntley did a decent job, but I feel like that Martin Emerson's really taken a step back this year and he could get back on track and he is still under contract. Newsom's under contract, and yes, you have Cameron Mitchell, but besides Denzel Ward, I feel like they need more help in that secondary, and the way I'm seeing this is just go take the best prospect in Will Johnson on the board, who's going to really help out that defense even more. And then on to the Giants, quarterback, yes, but you know what? I'm not forced. I just don't feel great about taking quarterback at number 4. Yes, in the second round, and that's why I'm saying maybe we can look at the trade back up into the first round to get a quarterback on a 5-year contract. But I'm not forcing that here. I really do not feel comfortable doing that. I'm going Mason Graham. Just pairing up him and Sexy Dexy. That is going to be we're going to be dancing all night over there on that interior defense. On the edge position too. Brian Burns and KT on the edge. That is a defensive line that is going to impose fear for offensive lines. On to the Jags here at number 5. This is where I'm going to go ahead and take that swing on Ben Morrison. They need some more secondary help in that secondary. And I feel like Benjamin Morrison is too good of a player. He is a top 5 player if he was healthy. For me, no problem. I would take him top 3 even. I talked about this. I would take him over Will Johnson if I knew the hip injury was all good and everything like that. I just need to have some more clarity on that. And behind the scenes stuff really hasn't been leaked or anything like that at this moment. But for the Jaguars, let's go ahead and continue to beef up that secondary. You got a stud now on offense with Brian Thomas. Get Trevor Lawrence healthy. Continue to invest in the offense line. We'll look at that on day 2. But they need a key piece in that secondary. And then on the Carolina Panthers at number 6, I'm going pass rush. There's really, to me, that is the number 1 need. And there's a player I feel very good about taking at this point, James Pierce Jr. I know the PFF's a little lower on him, and that's okay. I think James Pierce Jr., while he might be more of a role player, is just a situational pass rusher early on, the Panthers just need that in general. They need more pass rush. but I do feel like James Pierce Jr. has the ability to play, 400 or 500 snaps already as a rookie. And he's got all the size and length profile that you look for from dominant edge rusher. He just needs to add about 10 more pounds of muscle mass to be more of a true 3-down player and get better in the run game. But he makes plays still in the run game too. But James Pierce Jr., I'm taking him. I feel great about it. Carolina, build up some pass rush here. On to the old New York Jets, because that's basically what they're, the same old New York Jets. And I'm just going to go Tetairoa McMillan. I'm moving on. If it were me, I would move on from Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, and I would just go Tetairoa McMillan here and add another pass catcher with Garrett Wilson as your 1-2 combination in that wide receiving room. I love it. I really do. And figure it out, whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Jordan Travis. Like, I don't know at this point. And when people look at it on day 2, I think that's simply something we could look at as well. On to the Raiders at number 8, Tom Glesko. Great draft pick with Brock Bowers. One of the best draft picks in this class, you could even say, in terms of just strictly value. And he said, hey, look, I don't care. We're going to take the best available football player regardless of position. What if he does the same thing? It worked out once. Let's make it work twice. Ashton Jeanty, arguably, if not, or not even arguably for me, I think he's the top 3 player in this draft class. He's phenomenal. So you now add another superpower with Ashton Jeanty, with Super Bowers, and you're just building up key offensive weapons for whatever quarterback is quarterbacking for this football team. On to the Bears at number 9. It's as simple as offensive line. Offensive line is the top priority for me, and I'm going with my number 1 guy. My number 1 guy in this class, too, it is a bit of a shocker, but it's Josh Connolly Jr. So I know Bears fans will be saying, what? Kelvin Banks? Will Campbell on the board? You're not taking one of those guys? Look, I am a huge Josh Connolly guy. I think he is the best pass protector in this draft class. And for the Bears, well, you need some pass protectors. You need guys that can, whether he plays guard, whether he plays tackle. I know some people will say Connolly's a guard. Whatever, that's fine. Like, this team could use guard. They could use maybe a tackle as well. Because Braxton Jones going to last year of his deal. And, he's had some ups and downs. He's not the strongest guy. He does get pushed back. He doesn't lose a whole ton of, like, just strictly one-on-one, but he gets pushed back a little bit. However, look, Connolly, I am just, like I said, you put him in, whether it's guard, whether it's tackle, you just need more offensive line help. On to the Saints here at number 10. I'm going to do the same thing. They need more offensive line help. So I'm going to go take an offensive lineman here. This is a tough one, I will say, between Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks. Both it's neck and neck. And I would say that it really is neck and neck. But I'm going to go ahead and take Kelvin Banks Jr., Texas offensive lineman, whether he's a guard or a tackle for this team. If you want to move Penning over, not Penning, but if you want to move Penning inside the guard and then maybe move Fuaga over to right tackle, that's certainly an option. And then you have Banks over at left tackle. There's a lot of possibilities, but they need to continue to invest in this offense line because it still has been a major issue for this team. And adding in Kelvin Banks Jr. is certainly going to help that in the pass game for sure, and in the run game. He's a really good run blocker. The 49ers, the offensive line trend is going to continue as well. Like, I know the run on offensive linemen at this point, but I just feel like I'm taking a lot of these offensive linemen in this 8 to 15 range where I feel really good about these guys. And comparative, to the other players and stuff like that, I'm taking some of these offensive linemen. I'm going to scream and just start running them off the board. But I'm going to go ahead and add Josh Simmons here, whether he plays right tackle or left tackle. The good thing about it is, and the reason why I'm going Josh Simmons over a guy like Will Campbell, even though I think Campbell has a higher floor, I feel like Simmons has tremendous upside. And as a tackle, and certainly looking at that right tackle position, which Simmons has experience at right tackle, and so does Will Campbell, but Simmons as the right tackle of the future, maybe even the left tackle of the future as well. That certainly could be in play. But Simmons doesn't have to start right away. You can let him get fully healthy. You still have Colt McKivvick's under contract, so there's no push and major say, hey, he has to start right away. So that's the reason why I'm just saying, let's go ahead and go for a guy maybe with a little more upside here. Somebody that I feel like can be a top 5 tackle in the NFL and has all those tremendous traits you look for. Will Campbell's a great prospect too, and I don't want to knock him too much. It really is. It is tough. But on to the Indianapolis Colts here at number 12. And I know that their secondary has not been bad. And you got Warmack, you got Jones, you've got Kenny Moore in there, and you get Juju Brents back. But I feel like they're still missing that number 1 guy on the outside. So I'm going to do that, and especially with Chris Ballard, even though I am the GM, I still feel like this is a perfect fit for what the Colts need. And getting Siobhan Revel, coming off the ACL injury, of course, is the big question for him. But Revel is a guy with his tremendous ball skills and athleticism, somebody that I feel very good about taking for this Colts team to really lock down and finish up this secondary once and for all and help out the defense. On to the Cowboys at number 13. I'm going to continue to add a pass catcher, add another weapon. Now, offensive line is it is interesting. Will Campbell would be a fun one, but hopefully they figure it out there on that offensive line. I'm going to go and add Luther Burton III. Emeka Egbuka, though, was neck and neck, and I like Egbuka a lot. It really is a tough choice between Egbuka and Luther Burton. It is not as far a stretch as I think is maybe the consensus will say. Those two guys are really good football players. On to number 14 in the Arizona Cardinals. I'm changing it up. I'm going BPA and Will Campbell. I think Will Campbell at this point, I know they could use another edge rusher, but I feel like adding in a Will Campbell here will really help out this offensive line. Will Campbell could slide into guard right away and be the long-term right tackle because Jonah Williams is under contract for only one more season, and he's been a little injury prone throughout his career too. So I think that makes a lot of sense to add in Will Campbell, who has right tackle experience, and you could find your bookend tackles too with Will Campbell and Paris Johnson by doing that, but also filling in one of those guard spots, which everybody is a free agent except for Isaiah Adams on that interior. I mean, you got John Gaines who can be center, and you got some youth there, but I think Will Campbell certainly adds to their offensive line and protecting Kyler Murray. That's ever important, especially on that interior, to keep that pocket clean for him. Another pick where I say, let's keep the pocket clean for your quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, who's unfortunately, dealing with a lot of injuries and stuff. Well, no, it's not good quarterback. I didn't mean to pick that. But so you're like, whoa, you're getting ideas out here. Is this a shocker? No, I'm taking Tyler Booker, plug him in. He is a day one starter at that left guard position for the Miami Dolphins team, and it's exactly what they need to build a wall for Tua Tagovailoa. And I think he also be a great add next to Aaron Brewer. And he is athletic enough to be able to move and get out in space in Mike McDaniel's offense. He has enough athleticism to do that. On to the Cincinnati Bengals here at number 16. I am just going and taking some more help in that secondary. Malachi Stark's going to be a plug-and-play safety, versatile weapon for this team, whether he plays in the slot even, because Mike Hilton's a free agent. So that's certainly an option too for this team. So there's a lot of possibilities, but Malachi Starks, plug him in, Von Bell, and unfortunately, it just has not been quite the signing they were looking for with Geno Stone. You do have Jordan Battle, and I expect him to be one of your starters going forward, but now you have a good combination with Malachi Starks and then also Jordan Battle as your 1-2 punch for the future. Starks can be that dude, that ball-hawking guy in the back end, and certainly Battle can help you out in the box and stuff like that. And then on to the Atlanta Falcons here at number 17. A tough loss last night. Man, it really was a tough loss, but you know what they need? They need to be able to get stops when it matters. I'm going to go get a pass rusher, Mikael Williams. I'm shooting for the upside. Nick Scorton has a little bit higher floor in my opinion, but Williams, with his athletic movement and his length profile, it's rare. You don't find guys like that. I feel very good about taking a chance on a guy like that at number 17. I don't feel great about it like top 10, top 5, especially where he'll be mocked and maybe where he ends up going in the actual draft. But at like the 15 range, I feel really good about it. And then number 18, the Seattle Seahawks offensive line is continuing to be something this team has to do. And I'm going to go ahead and take Wyatt Millam, offensive lineman from West Virginia. And then West Virginia does it again. Millam, maybe not a crazy high-end player, but I think he's got extremely good strength profile. He moves dudes consistently in the run game, and he just doesn't lose really all that often in pass pro. And you move him inside the guard, I think he's going to be a really good Pro Bowl level player, and that's what Seattle needs. They just have struggled finding good offensive linemen. And maybe Christian Haynes develops at that right guard position and Wyatt Millam at that left guard position. And Millam could also be a swing tackle for them, as many injuries that they've had on that right side of their offensive line. They need to build a wall there. On the Houston Texans here at number 19, I'm going to go ahead and beef up the interior of the defensive line. And I know that they've done a good job there and whatnot, and it's not maybe the top need for this team, but you look at the free agents, and they just don't really have a whole ton of guys under contract. So Kenneth Grant, with his athleticism and his freakishness, his explosive ability for a guy 6'3", 339 pounds or whatever he is, 340 pounds close to. It's rare to find guys like that. And that's really where I feel comfortable starting to take Kenneth Grant, because there is still some points to his game, some inconsistencies as a pass rusher that I say, well, I don't feel comfortable taking him top 15 at the moment, but he has all the traits to do it. He has a decent first step as well, and he's a good run defender. And heck, when you got to deal with a guy with that tremendous size and athleticism, it's going to make Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter's life even easier than it already is. So let's go on to the Broncos at number 20, where I'm going to add another pass catcher. And I know their receiving core has been solid, so I'm not going to go receiver. I'm going to go with the tight end, adding that guy for Sean Payton to be that elite playmaker at the tight end position. Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, both really good players. They really are. And it's A, B. It's not really. There not a huge gap between those two guys. I know Warren's had a better season, but Loveland in that offense, the way he's produced has been just as impressive with the lack of quarterback play and consistency at the quarterback play for the Wolverines. So that's why I am kind of torn. Now, Loveland is more athletic. I think he's a better separator than Warren, but Warren's more physically imposing, more of an inline guy. So it just kind of comes down to that. But I'm going to look for more of a pass catcher maybe type that can be a route runner in this offense. And that's why I'm going to go Colston Loveland. As I talk about, though, it is so close there. It really is. On to the Bucks at number 21. I'm going to just take the guy stick it right in front of me here. Nick Scorton. They need more pass rushers. Scorton, another high floor player in this draft class. And I'm okay with that. I really am. I think Scorton, while he may not have the tremendous athletic traits that a guy like Mikael Williams has or James Pierce Jr., he's going to be your dude that can move inside out. He's certainly going to be great on stunts and putting him inside on NASCAR packages, etc. Like he has that versatility to play inside out. And they can even ask him, hey, can you lose 15, 10 pounds maybe? Because he looked like he gained like 10 pounds this offseason from Purdue going to Texas A&M. And what they look for at Texas A&M is more bigger rushers. But however, however you want to work Nick Scorton, he's going to help out this pass rush and get you some more edge presence. On to the Bolts here, number 22. And, we passed up on Tyler Warren for the Denver Broncos. I'm not going to pass up on him again. And I'm going to go take another weapon for Justin Herbert. And that's another thing. This team, they've had so many drops this season. Warren's going to add a sure catcher at that tight end position to go along with Will Dissly, who's more of an inline guy anyway. And I know that Stone Smart's actually kind of stepped up, but I think Tyler Warren would be an immense add to this offense. Rams at number 23. For the Rams, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to go with one of my guys in this class, Jihaad Campbell, linebacker, Alabama. Something this Rams team has really been missing. And, another thing, too, they've got to cover guys like George Kittle in this conference. You got Trey McBride. You got Noah Fan and whatnot. So it's like there's some really good tight ends in this division. And it's not just that. Like, they need a good linebacker, and they've just been lacking that. And I think that Jihaad Campbell is going to be that elite dude that can rush the passer, be a blitzer, and also drop back into coverage. He's comfortable doing that, and that has been a big trademark for him this season at Alabama, making plays. On to the Green Bay Packers at number 24. Well, you know what? I'm going to do and add something that they've been looking for a hot minute. It is a good run-defending interior defensive lineman. Yes, Tyleik Williams, maybe not a crazy pass rushing production that you would like to see this season, but he controls dudes on that defensive line. And that's just something that they need, right? I mean, they've got some pass rushers on that defensive interior. Carl Brooks, Devontae Wyatt, Kenny Clark. They need a guy that can just, be that run defender in the middle. And I think Tyleik Williams, I really like Tyleik Williams. And it's just the way he is able to get off blocks. And he also has able to diagnose and see the run as it goes. And that's also a critical part of being a one tech at the next level or a nose. On to the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 25. Well, Pittsburgh need another weapon. Whether it's Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, probably not Justin Fields at quarterback with the bench, and he'll probably want to go elsewhere. Whoever's the quarterback for this team, I am going to add a pass catcher, Emeka Egbuka. I think makes a ton of sense for this team. He's a reliable weapon, and he's certainly going to help out this receiving core. Give him a number 2 with George Pickens, and then hopefully Roman Wilson coming back, getting healthy, is going to be a good third option for this team. We move on to the Commanders here at number 26. Well, I'm just going BPA. I'm going to add a pass rusher, whether it's pass rusher, pass catcher, secondary player, offensive lineman, you name it. I just think you go BPA between those two, and depending on what they do in free agency. But Jalen Walker at this point, look, I am a little lower on Jalen Walker. You're seeing Jalen Walker go top 10. I'm not there. I'm more like 15 to 25 range. This is a good value for Jalen Walker because he's super disruptive. But I feel like you need to have a really smart defensive mind to be able to understand what Jalen Walker is going to be good at and what he's not going to be good at. If you're expecting Jalen Walker to drop back in coverage and, be the backpedal machine and make plays and stuff like that, I think you're going to be disappointed. But is it like a hybrid edge rusher, somebody that you use in A, B gap blitzes and, creatively off the edge? Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like Dan Quinn's going to get the most out of a guy like Jalen Walker and add some more help to this pass rush with Dorrance Armstrong, who's really the only other guy in under contract, Frankie Louvu as well. And then on to the Baltimore, you probably need to bring Dante Fowler back at least for another season. Anyway, on to the Baltimore Ravens here at number 27. And for the Ravens, they love defensive linemen, man. I think they could use another defensive lineman that could really just bolster up their pass rush even more. And a guy that I like a lot, somebody that gives you that versatility on the interior and also off the edge, can be some more help with some rotation with Broderick Washington early on, and then the long-term starter there in that role is LT Overton. This guy, somebody who might end up transitioning into more of a 5-tech role anyway in the next level, but he's got tremendous length. He's got solid athleticism. He's just somebody that knows how to use his hands as well. Like, that's a key thing with a lot of these defense linemen. They just don't know how to use their hands. He knows how to get off linemen. He knows how to counter, how to use those hands, how to, rip, swim, counter, club. Like, he's got a lot of different moves in that pass rush repertoire. On the Eagles here, and oh boy, speaking of a guy that knows how to use his tools as a pass rusher, Mike Green. Okay, Mike Green, we got to talk about Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall. This guy is stronger than you would think. A guy is 6'4", 248 pounds-ish, or whatever he ends up coming in at. He is a disruptive machine. And I also think he is going to be a dream for a guy like Vic Fangio. He's going to be a perfect scheme fit for them. You got to think with Josh Sweat being a free agent, Brandon Graham, maybe this is his last season. So that makes a lot of sense to add some more pass rush. Bryce Huff's been a little bit of a disappointing signing for this team. Maybe he gets it going at some point, but no matter what, they could still use another guy besides Nolan Smith in that edge room as much as they rotate guys in and out. But Mike Green, really phenomenal pass rusher. Another dude that's got a repertoire of moves. He has a dangerous spin move. He's got rips. He's got clubs. Like, he can do, well, more of a rip. He's got a combination, of using that swim, that inside counters. Like, he does things at a high level there and really knows how to get after the pass rusher. And he's also kind of got that natural instinct, too, that you kind of see him where is that natural feel to get after the pass rusher. I can't wait to see him in the offseason approach, because that really is going to make or break whether he goes first round or second to me, but really good football player. On the Buffalo Bills here, number 29, and the Bills, I'm going to add a secondary player, a guy who's been phenomenal this season, Jahdae Barron, Texas, Hook'em Horns. Jahdae Barron has been so good in that secondary for Texas. And he's not an elite athlete, but he can get away with that for Buffalo. That's not something that they absolutely need. They need somebody who can read quarterbacks' eyes and make plays on the football in their zone-heavy defense. And Barron is going to do that exactly. Be that opposite pairing with Christian Benford, who had a phenomenal week versus the Jets, just shutting dudes down. Unfortunately, as a Jets fan, it was tough to watch. Obviously got Taron Johnson in the slot. He's been a little banged up, so Barron could also help out and be the long-term slot corner for this team. But, Johnson's under contract, and they just gave him an extension. And Barron showed they could play on the outside. I feel like in this scheme, he can play on the outside. On the Detroit Lions here, number 30, I'm going Ariante Ursary. He's a guy that is a perfect scheme fit for this Detroit Lions team. You plug him on the inside. I view him as a guard at the next level. Now, I know some people will see him as a tackle, and that's fine. But I view him as a guard. I view him as a Mekhi Becton. Plug him into either this left guard or right guard position. Now, I know Graham Glasgow is under contract, but Zeitler isn't. So if you want to put him over at right guard, I'm cool with that. You put him there. He's going to be a monster next to Penei Sewell and Frank the Tank Ragnow. What a combo that would be, just plowing dudes in the run game. He fits their mold of what the type of offensive lineman they look for. Minnesota Vikings at number 31. The Vikings, I'm going to go ahead and trade down here. This is where it makes sense. If you're trying to get a quarterback, I'm okay with that because you're not going to have to give up too much draft capital to move up. And the Minnesota Vikings, they need a little more draft capital. A team that does have a little bit extra draft capital are a team like the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's why I'm saying what it's going to cost is going to be that third rounder from the New York Jets. It might be one of these, day 3 picks that gets thrown into it as well. Just giving the Vikings more draft capital because look, they only have 5 picks in this draft. They need to add, they have more needs than that. They're going to have to fill some of these. So adding in another day 2 pick is going to be critical for them. An early day 3 pick as well, which is almost even a second rounder. And then also adding in a day 3 pick is going to be tremendous help. And maybe it's 144. I don't know. 182. It's fine for me. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's what it's going to be doing to get this deal done. I'm moving up for Shedeur Sanders. Whether they get a quarterback in free agency or not, I still feel like they're going to need to get and address the quarterback situation for the long haul. I don't even think Sam Darnold's going to be there. I think Minnesota's going to re-sign him or give him a franchise tag, etc. So I'm planning on let's go get our quarterback of the future in Shedeur Sanders. And as I talked about, this is where it makes more sense to draft one of these quarterbacks in this class. I don't feel comfortable getting one of these guys top 10. At the end of the first round, I feel good about it. I think it makes a lot of sense. You're taking a chance on Shedeur Sanders at this point, who is a good quarterback, and I like him as a prospect. He's my number 1 guy in this class. With now Drew Aller going back to Penn State this next season, I think it makes a lot of sense to get Shedeur Sanders at this point. He maybe doesn't have that elite arm talent or elite athleticism, but he's a really good processor, knows how to read the field. Get him a good offensive line. The Raiders, they have some building blocks that they're going to continue to add to that, but I feel like they can do enough and add some more. With Ashton Jeanty, they're going to have a good run game. You got Super Bowers, Jacoby Myers. Still need to add another weapon, but I think Shedeur can thrive for this Raider team. On to the final pick of the first round, and for the Kansas City Chiefs, we're also going to be making a trade here. I know Kansas City doesn't necessarily need to trade down. They've got good draft capital. I mean, they could add some more depth into this draft, and that's kind of what I'm going to be looking for. But I'm going to move up with the New York Giants, who have to go get a quarterback. I know Drew Lock had a good week, but partially was that on Neighbors making plays and Wan'Dale Robinson making plays after the catch. They need to add a quarterback in the future, so I'm going to do that for the Giants. It shouldn't cost a tremendous value. I'll go ahead and take a look at this. We'll add in a fourth rounder for this to get the deal done and force this trade through. And I'm going to take Cam Ward, quarterback, the Hurricanes. He'll have some answering to do for leaving that game and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I still think he is a solid quarterback with his upside. He's got a little more mobility than Shedeur does, a little bit more playmaking ability, and the little bit better arm velocity on him too. But I do worry more about his decision making and stuff like that. So he's going to have to hone some of those things. But you got Malik Neighbors to throw the football and Wan'Dale Robinson. For me, Timbers, on to round number 2 we go. And on to the New England Patriots. It's offensive line. Cameron Williams on the board at this point. I'm going ahead and solidifying him. You got Travis Hunter now, and then you go get Cameron Williams on that offensive line. Whether he's right tackle, left tackle, I don't care, man. I'm just getting an offensive line for Drake May. So adding in Travis Hunter to help out as another weapon, and then Cameron Williams as your offensive line forcer at that right tackle position, because Onwenu can stick at that right guard position either which way. And as I talk about, maybe move Williams over to left tackle, figure that all out. They got to invest in the offensive line. On the Tennessee Titans, you know what? I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to invest in the offensive line as well. I think Marcus Bowe is going to be a big-time riser too after the combine and off-season approach, but he has got tremendous hand usage, and he's got really good feet athleticism. And I do think he can stick a tackle. I really do. And you know what? They could use a right guard as well. So whether it's right guard, right tackle, get one of the two. But Bowe, I'm going to try him at right tackle before moving him inside to guard and I would actually move him to center if nothing else. And they don't need a center. Yes, you got Lloyd Cushenberry, but I see him as a tackle. I really do. I would keep him. I really would. I keep him at right tackle. The key thing with offensive tackles, whether they're tackles or move them into inside, is not just comes down to arm length. It's knowing how to use your arm length. I don't care if you got 32-inch arms. If you know how to use your hands, if you have good hand usage, and you don't allow offensive linemen to counter and get on your chest and things like that, that's going to go a longer way than having 36-inch arms and you have no idea how to use them. And look at Patrick Paul, who I think just doesn't know how to use his hands, at least not at the moment. Even though he's got 35, 36-inch arms, I just think it doesn't really matter if you don't know how to use those. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I like Marcus Bowe better as a tackle than Patrick Paul, even. On to Cleveland Browns here at number 35. I'm going to Amari Hampton. I'm going to take a running back. And yes, quarterback is a big need for them too. I get that, but I'm not forcing it here. I just think that Amari Hampton, going and getting yourself Will Anderson, Amari Hampton, you're adding really just like kind of two blue chip type of prospects for this football team. And then we could maybe even look at it like Carson Beck or maybe Jalen Milroe falls or even Quinn Ewers. I think that makes a lot of sense even more at this point where they're picking at the board and who's still available. I'd be comfortable getting one of those guys in round number 3. And on the Chiefs here at number 36. And for the Chiefs, I think I know what I'm going to do here. I'm going to add some more interior defensive linemen. I'm going to go and take Derek Harmon, who's had a tremendous season in Oregon. He was good at Michigan State too. Two of my favorite teams. I remember this guy. He is a good football player. I'm telling you. Derek Harmon and him, Chris Jones, going to be a great 1-2 punch. Mike Pennell, probably try to bring him back. Maybe Tayshaun Wharton goes in free agency, gets a bigger deal elsewhere. Who knows? He's a solid pass rusher, but I think that Derek Harmon would be a phenomenal addition to that defensive line, which they just need some more defensive line, whether it's edge rusher or defensive interior. Just go with BPA, and I think that Derek Harmon is going to be the biggest impact for them. On to the Jags here at 37. I'm going to go and add offensive line now. We added some defensive help in the first round. We got ourselves some help with Benjamin Morrison. Now I'm going to add in some offensive line help. I'm going to take a guy that Armin Embu is going to get some serious hype soon. I think it's a matter of time, but he's athletic and he is a road grader too for his size in the run game. Like you go and take a look at that South Carolina tape, especially, he was just mauling dudes in the run game. And throughout his tape too, like in the SEC competition, he can really knock back some guys. He's got some power. Needs to work on his hand usage in pass pro, and that's why I think he's a guy that needs to move inside to guard actually. And he doesn't have tremendous size out there, but he actually has good arm length. But at 6'3", 315, 14 pounds, he's somebody that I view as more of a guard because he's got the strength to hold up on the interior and whatnot in the arm length, but he just needs to get a little bit better with his hand usage. But I do feel like he's just going to be a guy that's going to be better on the interior. I really like him though, and it certainly could be a swing tack for this team. On to the Bears, number 38. I am just going to take the best available pass rusher at this point. get some more edge presence because they do have some upcoming and pending free agents. Obviously, DeMarcus Walker is still under contract. They could move on from him. He's had a solid season, so I don't expect them to do that. But let's go and get a 1-2 pairing with Montez Sweat, Tyler with Austin Booker as well. So kind of get your 3 combination with the value on the board. That's what I'm doing here. I'm going to go a little bit different. I like Prince Umamian a little bit more, even than Shamar Stewart. I know Stewart has a little more upsides. You kind of have to bank that. And maybe Stewart would be a better, if you're looking for like a 1-to-1 DeMarcus Walker replacement, that could be an option too for them. However, Umamian, I like him a lot as a pass rusher. He's a guy that knows how to use his hands and get after the quarterback with his athleticism and speed. And he's not a small guy. He's not a big guy or nothing. I mean, he's listed, 6'5", 255. Maybe a little bit. He may have been playing a little less than that. I don't know. He looks a little bit less than like 245, 250 this season. But he certainly has been a dominant presence at Ole Miss this season. I know you talk about Walter Nolan or even Jared Ivey a lot, but Prince Umamian, you turn on the Ole Miss tape and it's like, okay, this guy's flashing consistently. On the Jets here, number 39, and you know what? As a Jets fan, I'm doing it. I'm doing it, bro. I'm taking Jalen Milroe, quarterback, Alabama. This team, yes, we do have Jordan Travis, and I love Jordan Travis. Huge fan of his. I'm worried about the injuries, and there is some limitations with his arm talent too, of course, but I think Milroe, he's got the arm talent, and he has the athleticism. He just needs some time to develop as a passer, but as a runner, he can certainly use those legs early on in his career to thrive. You're going to need to figure something out, whether it's Tyrod Taylor starting earlier on or keeping Aaron Rodgers, whatever. But I think Milroe, hopefully at least with his upside, you could give us a chance, right? I just need a chance, right? Just give me a chance. So that's why I'm doing it. On it too, and I love Milroe. I still like Milroe. I love watching Milroe. I'm a huge fan of just watching him as a football player. Yes, he needs to work on especially some of those outside the number throws. On to number 40, it's the Minnesota Vikings after the trade down, getting a little more draft capital, which is going to be huge for this team. I'm going to add a cornerback. Byron Murphy's been really good this season. They need to re-sign him, and they're going to have to use some of that money to do that. But I still think they're going to need to add somebody else into the room on the outside. So I'm going to do that here. Trey Amos, Azaria Thomas, both really good options, I think, at this point on the board. I'm going to go with Azaria Thomas. It is really close, and some people are going to be higher on Trey Amos or Thomas, etc. I feel like Thomas has a little bit more athletic profile to him than Amos does, but I think Amos is a little bit cleaner of a prospect, but he does have a year more under his belt than Azaria Thomas does, a little more production as well, but I think Thomas has a little more upside to his game. Both really good football players and going to help out, be that more physical presence on the outside for this football team. Bears number 41. I'm going BPA as well, and just continuing to beef up their trenches even more on the interior. I'm going to go take Walter Nolan, who's going to be a phenomenal 1-2 punch on that defense line with Gervon Dexter for the formidable future. Yes, you do have Billings, but coming off injury, you might start to think about that. He'll be going to last year of his contract as well. Nolan's been an excellent run defender, and he's been super strong this season. He's also been able to get after the pass or shooting gaps and shooting lanes, using those hands a little bit better too. Still a little more consistent, but I think he's been really, really solid at Ole Miss. On to number 42, and the New Orleans Saints here at number 42. Yeah, speaking of new, they need some new players onto their team, and I'm going to add in Shamar Stewart, going to be Cam Jordan-esque replacement for this team. He kind of fits the mold of a New Orleans Saints pass rusher too in terms of what I think of, especially if they don't re-sign Chase Young, which he might get a big contract elsewhere. So Shamar Stewart adds some more pass rush to go along with Carl Granderson. On to the San Francisco 49ers at 43. I'm also going to add a pass rusher in here. We got Josh Simmons in the first round to help out that offensive line. Let's go ahead and get some more presence off the edge. A guy that I mean, both Ohio State guys are very good football players. Yeah, they might not be athletically freakish guys, but they're both dudes that I feel are going to have very long careers in the NFL and give you production season in, season out. I am going to take between the two Ohio State guys. I'm going to take JT Tuimoloau, a guy that looks like an NFL player. He's got the size. He's got the NFL strength profile to fill in and be an impact for this team right away, and certainly going to add some more pass rush into the mold with Leonard Floyd getting a little bit older now, going to be going to last year of his contract. Yetur Gross-Matos only on one more year on his contract. Drake Jackson's been a little banged up through his career, so I feel like that makes a lot of sense to add some more into the pass rush. On to the Colts here at number 44. I'm going to add that tight end that we didn't go in the first round, but that's okay because I think there's still some really good players here. Harold Fanning Jr., I'm taking him, man. He has been the best, in terms of receiving production, the best tight end in college football. Over 1,500 yards or something insane, astronomical at Bowling Green, and against his best competition too. Like, he put up good numbers, right? So He's been a guy that's been so impressive this season, and with his ability to just make plays as a pass catcher, while he might be more of an Isaiah Likely type of athlete, he is not an elite athlete, but he is certainly somebody that just catches everything, and he's got some shake in the open field too to create and get some yak ability to his game. And, he's not going to be an elite block or anything like that, but he can be somebody that can certainly give you some chip help for this Colts team off the, at that tight end position. So certainly just going to add another pass catching weapon for them. On to the Dallas Cowboys at number 45. The Cowboys, I'm going to look to the interior of the defensive line, and there are some really good football players still available at that point too. So I think that between TJ Sanders, Omar Norman-Lott, Deone Walker, Alfred Collins, Darrell Jackson is coming back, which I'm surprised upon anyway. It depends on who they let go, or it depends on what they do in the offseason. If they let go of Osa Odighizuwa, which they really need to bring him back, then I would say lean towards a TJ Sanders or Omar Norman-Lott. But I think that they're going to bring Osa Odighizuwa back, whether it's a franchise tag or whatever it ends up being. I'm going to go add another big presence, Deone Walker, into that defense line from Kentucky. His size, it's just a matter of time. If you have a good defensive line coach and you feel confident you can train this guy up, he's going to be a beast. And another thing I will say that, some of the things I worry about with Deone Walker, with his inconsistencies and, some plays where I just feel like he's taking plays off, he does play, 60 to 70 snaps. And this is a guy that is freaking 350 pounds, 6'6". You don't expect him to play 60 snaps a game. You should not expect that. So that's one thing that I do eyed in the favor of Deone Walker. Those dominant reps are dominant. And when you go against one-on-one guards, centers, he is a handful to deal with. So adding another presence on that interior, I think makes a lot of sense. Moving on to the Cardinals here. In the first round, we got Will Campbell. And now I think you got to add a pass rusher. We didn't add a pass rusher. We passed for offensive linemen. I know that that's not necessarily their biggest need. I do think pass rush is their biggest need. But I just feel like with the way the board kind of fell, I feel better about some of these guys on day 2, or just as good as some of these guys on day 2 as even at that point where we were picking in the first round. Comparative to the offensive line, if you looked at the offensive line board comparative to the edge room right now, I think I feel really good about the edge room. So that's another reason why that's kind of what I would do. And I'm going to go take Donovan Ezeraku here, edge rusher from Boston College. Going to be a perfect fit for them, and certainly add more pass rush to go along with your B.J. Ojulari, your Xavier Collins, and we'll see if they bring back Baron Browner, but they need to add some more pass rush for sure off the edge. And then moving on here to Miami at number 47, first pick, we went Tyler Booker. I think we need to go defensive line. Cornerback is also a spot for this team that they could seriously look at as well. They're getting a little bit older in that secondary / they could certainly, use some more help there. But I think I'm gonna go defensive line. It's between Trey Amos, TJ Sanders, and then I think Omar Norman-Lott's still on the board as well. I think between any one of those three, Omar Norman-Lott's still on the board. Those are the three guys that I would lean into at this point. And maybe even a Landon Jackson could be a fun one. I think he could be like a Calais Campbell type of replacement for this team too. Somebody that could play on the inside. But I am going to go ahead and take Omar Norman-Lott here, Tennessee defensive lineman. He has just been so good as a pass rusher. Sanders has also been a really good pass rusher too. I like both of those guys, and it's neck and neck. Both need to add some more play strength, but anyway, I think Norman-Lott's going to certainly add some more rotational pass rush on that interior of the defense line. You pick up a one-tech in free agency, and you kind of go from there. And then on to the Bengals here at number 48. It's going to be so interesting this week, whether the Dolphins or the Bengals could sneak in if the Denver Broncos do lose. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to have anything to play for. That's the thing. Will Mahomes even start? But Bengals would be so dangerous if they make the playoffs somehow, some way. We got Malachi Starks, so going back to the draft. They got Malachi Starks here with their first pick. I am going to go offensive line. We have to upgrade this interior. We have to upgrade the guard position between Cordell Volgeon and also Alex Kappa, who's kind of taking a bit of a step back. And he's okay still, and he's under contract. They just need to upgrade this guard position. I'm going to go and add in... Let's add Donovan Jackson, wherever he might be. Oh, yeah, that's right. They have him listed under a tackle. I'm like, where did he go? I knew he was in here somewhere. But, yeah, okay. Jonas Salvanaya would also be a great pick. Even Charles Grant, if they want to, shoot for the moon, I think Charles Grant's a really fun one. But Donovan Jackson, he's got tremendous size, 6'4", 320. Looks like an NFL offensive lineman already. He's got solid athleticism, man, to get on the move, make plays in the run game, which is going to help them out, too. They need to certainly add more run blocking fire. So that way Joe Burrow doesn't have to throw for 300 yards passing every single game and 3+ touchdowns. It would be nice if they, Chase Brown's been really good. And it's like teams are having to cover so much they can't stack the boxes. So that's been part of it too. But if you add some more run blocking ability here with Donovan Jackson and also pass protection, it's going to help out their team tremendously, in my opinion. The Atlanta Falcons here at number 49. And the first pick, we got Mikael Williams. Add some more pass rush. You got to do it, in my opinion. That's just something this team has to do. And then at this pick, it gets really interesting because these are the spots I would say it really does to come down to free agency for them. They could even look at a safety, go along with Jesse Bates. They could look at another cornerback, depending if Mike Hughes isn't back, because he's had a really good season. Maybe somebody signs him. And then you got questions at linebacker. I think they could really use a coverage guy. I love Nate Landman, but he is probably more of a rotational, early down guy. Troy Anderson hasn't worked out. So finding that coverage guy next to Ellis would be really good too. I think offensive tackle to develop behind Caleb McGarry certainly makes sense. Plus, Jake Matthews getting a little bit older now, and obviously McGarry going to last year of his contract. So, and McGarry's been solid, I will say. So it's not like they have to upgrade from McGarry this offseason. It gets interesting, but I feel like they do need to get at least a developmental tackle on day 2 somewhere. I'm going to take a linebacker, though, here. I'm going to go and add a coverage guy, somebody I really do like, and especially in this linebacking class where I do think there might be a bit more of a drop-off. You got Barrett Carter, I think, can cover really well. You got some dudes later on. But Chris Paul, really good athlete, very good coverage player, making a lot of plays for that Ole Miss Rebels team in their secondary, and he's comfortable moving in his back pedal, reading the defender's eyes or the quarterback's eyes and making plays on the football. So just going to add in that coverage dude next to Ellis. I think it just makes a lot of sense for this team. And on to Seattle here at number 50. And Seattle, a lot of different options as well this team could look at, right? They could look at potentially a quarterback. I think they could look at even another weapon if they let go of Tyler Lockett. I think they could look at a safety. I think they could look at possibly another edge rusher. And actually, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go after another pass rusher for this team, mainly because, you do have to think Uchenna Nwosu's had some injuries, been a little banged up. Maybe they move on from him, and they say, let's go ahead and get that number 3 guy to go along with a guy like Boye Mafe and Derek Hall. And also to think with Draymond Jones being a free agent, I'm going to think of somebody who can play off the edge, but also play a little bit in the 5 tech on the inside as well. And the guy that I'm looking at here is Landon Jackson. He's a very interesting, polarizing player. He needs to work on his hand usage, work on understanding how to use those hands a little bit better because he's not the most athletic guy. So he's going to have to certainly know how to use his hands at a high level to be able to be a super disruptive pass rusher. But he is a really good run defender. He has tremendous size. He is a good athlete for a guy that's 6'6", 280 pounds, right? He's just under 6'7" as his official measurements. He is a tremendous size, freak, long arm dude. And he certainly has had some dominant reps. You go to the Alabama film where he has been able to put up some big numbers through his career too. He's done his best work, I feel like, against Alabama. But anyway, he is a really interesting prospect, somebody that I feel like is going to be a great 3-4 defensive end at the next level, who can, in a similar vein to the way that they use a guy like Draymond Jones, on certain packages, they can play him off the edge, play him on the inside. And then with Houston at number 51, after going Kenneth Grant, let's go ahead and add another piece on the offense. I think guard could certainly be an interesting play for this team. I guess it wouldn't shock me if they drafted tight end, but I don't think they would. Even though the tight end class is really good, you still have Schultz, and then you obviously drafted Cade Stover, so I don't feel like that's going to be something they go after. I'm going to add a receiver, a pass catcher into the mold because of the Tank Dell injury, and you worry about that at this point. So if nothing else, you're adding a number 3 guy who can help out for injuries, which I do think makes a lot of sense. I am going, this is a tough one because you got Isaiah Bond, Evan Stewart. Both of those guys would be phenomenal players to add into this room. So I'm going to go for the speed option in Isaiah Bond from Texas and just getting CJ Stroud, another playmaker in this offense. On the Denver Broncos at 52. And for the Broncos, I am just looking at the board here. And yes, you do have Audric Estime. You got Jaleel McLaughlin. But what if we add in that elite runner, right? I feel like that's, they don't have that elite runner. And with Caleb Johnson and Quishon Judkins both on the board, I cannot pass on one of those guys. I really can't. So that to me is BPA. I do think defensive interior is certainly something that they could look at. However, I would be looking for more of a one-tech type of dude, and I feel like we can find that on with their 3rd round pick. So that's why I'm going to go Caleb Johnson here and just continue to add more offensive firepower. Number 53 in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, for the Buccaneers, I'm going to go ahead and with the way the board has fallen, I'm going to add it because they don't actually have tons of needs. I think Tampa Bay does a great job. Jason Light is one of the best GMs in the NFL. And I'm going to add in some more offensive line help, even though offensive line's been really good. But Jonas Salvanaia is a really good offensive lineman that you plug inside the guard, fill in that final offensive guard position. Mock, who could also move back over to left guard. Like, you can move Mock over to left guard, you keep Mock over to left guard, move Jonas Salvanaia over to left guard, and kind of finalize that offensive line. Like, that is a insane group. And obviously Salvanaia, if you have injuries with Godecki, then you could certainly look at putting him out there too. And obviously Tristan Wirfs is your franchise left tackle. So now you got Wirfs, Salvanaia, Barton, Mock, and Godecki over as your offensive line, as your tandem of 5. Like, that is an elite offensive line for Baker Mayfield, this run game, which you have an elite run game potentially with that group of 3, whatnot, with White, with Bucky, and then also Sean Tucker. So it's like you're just building something there. I think it's an insane offensive line. On to 54 here in the Bolts. I'm going to go ahead and add some defensive line because Khalil Mack, a free agent, you got to think about adding some youth into the edge room. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add in Captain Jack Sawyer. He is Mr. High Floor prospect, but he's also been a really good pass rusher too, okay? And yes, he doesn't have crazy bend or anything like that, but he's got good burst off the edge, and he's a great run defender. Going to be a nice addition for Jim Harbaugh on that defensive line. And over to Carolina, where the Panthers, we got James Pierce Jr. I'm going to continue the defensive theme. I think receiver certainly is in play here, adding another pass catcher. I kind of like the value, though, waiting till round 3 in this draft class. I really do. And that's kind of why you're seeing some of these guys fall in general. I do like Evan Stewart a lot here. I will say Evan Stewart would make a really, really fun pick, and I am thinking about it, but I am going to add a safety because that safety room is void right now. Like, they've got everybody's a free agent. And I'm sure they're going to bring some guys in. Besides, maybe they'll re-sign Xavier Woods or Jordan Fuller, etc. But I think they got to add in a guy. I'm going to add in one dude that I'm a huge fan of, Xavier Watts. Andrew Makuba is also a fun option, but Xavier Watts, he's a playmaker, man. Think of your Kirby Joseph type of dude in that back end that's going to be that patroller, playmaking, ball hawk weapon. And Carolina, they need that, right? They need to have more turnovers. Green Bay at number 56. Well, Green Bay, what should we do? Well, first round, we go ahead and got Tylee Williams. I'm going to add a secondary player. Since Trey Amos is staring me on the board at this point, I feel like that'd be a great just plug-in play there if you lose Eric Stokes in free agency. You do have Carrington Valentine, and he had a nice interception this week, almost a pick 6, but I think Amos certainly adds some more help. And with Jair Alexander being out, this team definitely does have a step back in their secondary. So adding another piece, no matter what, certainly will help out this team. On to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm not going to lie, I would have gone secondary there. I mean, Maxwell Harrison's still certainly a good option. There's still some very good players. You got David Igbenogson still on the board too. But I'm going to go ahead and lean towards TJ Sanders, who's still on the board at this point. Sanders is a really good football player. And Pittsburgh, continue to add to the defensive line because you do have to think about long-term. Larry Ogunjobi could be cut / they need some more help on that defensive line. They use 3 guys. They use 4 or 5 guys in rotation and whatnot. So adding to TJ Sanders, he's going to play 300, 400 snaps potentially in his rookie season, depending on how good he is and whatnot. But Sanders, really a fun player. And if nothing else, he's going to be a really fun pass rusher to add in there next to Benton and Hayward. And then we go on to the Commanders here at number 58. Commanders, we got first round, we went edge, we went Jalen Walker. I am going to add a receiver at this point, okay? Because they need another weapon besides Scary Terry. And I know Zacchaeus has really stepped up. Like, they've gotten multiple guys. I mean, between Crowder and whatnot to step up, but De'Ami Brown. I'm going to add in one of my guys in this class. Ooh, Trey Harris would be a fun one too, man. But I'm going to go Evan Stewart. Ooh, this is a tough one, but yeah, I'm going to go Evan Stewart. I love Evan Stewart, man. I really do. His athleticism is insane. His ball skills, the consistency, yes, it's not been there. And he's had some rough games here and there. The Washington game probably was his rough game of the season. He had a couple of drops in that one, but you take a look at what this guy can be, and you go to the Ohio State tape. Can't wait to see him again go against Igbenogson, who freaking got away with some holding calls versus him. But Evan Stewart, really good football player, and you get him to go along with Scary Terry. And yeah, that's a scary offense for Jaden Daniels. And I also think he has got tremendous speed as well. On to number 58 in the Baltimore Ravens. First pick, we went at defensive line. Let's get some offensive line here for this team. They need to certainly add some more help to this room. I'm going to add in Charles Grant. I'm going to go for the upside here. I think Charles Grant is a guy that it also kills 2 birds with 1 stone sort of thing. So just in case they lose Rodney Stanley, well, Charles Grant, in a similar vein, I mean, he's even more of a freakish athlete than Roger Rosengard. And You do worry a little bit about his hands. Like, he's nowhere near as far along as Roger Rosengard. And like, Roger Rosengard had tremendous hand uses coming out of Washington. I think people were kind of, surprised. Look, he was a solid offensive tackle prospect, and he was a good athlete. Grant is an elite athlete as well. He just needs to work on his hand usage, and I can't wait to see what he looks like at the Senior Bowl. He could easily be around one guy. I wouldn't be shocked. He's got those little traits, and he almost has 36-inch arms as well. So whether it's left tackle or move him to left guard, figure something out, like they could have a void at many of those spots. He's a really fun run blocker on the move as well. So he's going to certainly add more run blocking for Derrick Henry. Moving on to Philadelphia at number 60, and there were a different plethora of options I think this team could look at. With the tackles running off the board, I would have actually taken Charles Grant, but with him now off the board, I think you look at possibly adding another pass catcher, whether that's a slot receiver / they can use multiple guys, but Jahan Dotson quite hasn't worked out for them. But tight end would make a lot of sense with Dallas Goedert going in the last year of his contract. You do have Grant Calcaterra, but I still think they could add a tight end there. I think other areas that this team could look at is adding a coverage linebacker, right? Oren Burks actually played pretty decent this season. Had a nice forced fumble too, but as like a coverage linebacker, that is something that this team does need, right? Zach Bond needs to be re-signed, but anyway, they could still use another guy to go along with Nakobe Dean. And then, it'd be interesting to see if they did add another safety, but Blankenship's under contract, so is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's had a great second half of the season, I will say. He struggled at the beginning of the year, but he's been fantastic in the second half. So I'm going to go ahead and take a pass-catching tight end here, add another weapon for this team for the future who can learn and develop behind Dallas Goedert. And I'm going to take Gunnar Helm here. Mason Taylor would be a really good option too, but I'm going to go ahead and take Gunnar Helm. He's been the top target at Texas this season, and he has certainly the ability to be that inline blocker too. Buffalo at number 61. Buffalo, well, I think I'm going to go add another pass catcher for you guys too. First round, we went at Jahdae Barron, and now I'm going to go in. There's a lot of interesting targets to add, but I am going between Jalen Royals, Trey Harris, Jaden Higgins, got Savion Williams, Alec Ayumannor, Xavier. There's just a lot. I probably wouldn't go Xavier Restrepo since they have Khalil Shakir. So I feel like let's add in a guy who can play on the outside. And the guy that I'm going to add in here, it is a tough one. I'm not going to lie. A lot of these dudes are like neck and neck for me. I do like Jalen Royals a lot, so I'm going to add in Jalen Royals. I think he can has a lot of upside to as another separator in this offense. Did I scare you? I don't know. Anyway, we're roaring on to the Lions here at number 62. And first pick, we got Arion Tiercy. We got a big, monster, physical presence on that offensive line, be a guard of the future. And he'll also be a swing tackle too if you have injuries, etc. But anyway, on to this next pick here for the Lions. And a couple options this team could look at. I think you're just looking for the future, really do, but maybe a big receiver, right? Maybe a Jaden Higgins or a Trey Harris. I think would be a fun one too. Or, there's like a lot of different options they could look at. But Tim Patrick, maybe re-sign him. And then, there's a couple options they could look at. But defensive line, I do lean towards doing that. Maybe they add a linebacker for the future. I don't feel comfortable taking any linebackers at this point. Maybe Barrett Carter. But I am going to go ahead and I'm going to add some more defensive line help. And I think Ashton Jeanty is just, he fits the mold. He is a tough-nosed football player, man. He knows how to use his hands as well. He is a guy that's got a lot of pass rush moves already to his belt. He's a guy where it's like he has physical limitations. Okay, he's not the crazy athlete, but he's actually a solid lateral mover. Like, he can shoot in and out of gaps. He just knows how to use his hands. He knows how to rip, cross chop. He's got different type of pass rush moves to his plan. He can utilize, inside counters and stuff like that. He can work tackles and set him up really well. Like, he just has that pass rush instinct, and he's a solid run defender as well. He's just going to be a nice addition for that Detroit Lions team. You add in that fourth guy with Josh Pascal. Obviously, you got your starters with Za'Darius and Hayden Hutch. So you get that fourth guy to go along, be that rotation for Josh Pascal as well, if you have injuries especially. On the Buffalo Bills here at 63. And the Buffalo Bills, we just got a receiver, and then the first round we got Jahdae Barron. I am going to continue to add defensive line here too for them. And you know what? Actually, no. I'm going to go a little different route because their defense line's been really, really solid. And you got to figure maybe Dwayne Carter takes the next step as that number 2 guy next season. I'm going to go and take safety this time, right? Let's add another piece in that secondary. Taylor Rapp is not bad and whatnot, but I feel like Cole Bishop's going to be the future there at that spot. Let's add a playmaker. Let's add somebody in the back end who can kind of be like that coverage guy, that ball hawk, that robber dude. You said the robber dude. You know what I'm saying? But I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to add in Makuba, somebody I'm a huge fan of. Makuba is just so gifted as a playmaker, man. He reads quarterbacks' eyes so well. He just does. And he's got great athletic traits. and somebody that is so feisty, man. In the run game, he's not afraid to come downhill and make a football player. And I think he's going to be a great addition for them in that quarters-heavy defense. Finishing up this draft now for the Kansas City Chiefs, we got Derek Harmon with their first pick after a little bit of a trade down. And they also have a early second or third round pick as well at their disposal. But now what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to add another pass catcher. I think with the board, with some of these players still available, I think it makes sense to add in a big play target to go along with Rajee Rice and to go along with Xavier Worthy. We'll see. I think Hopkins will probably be back, but they still could add another weapon, especially with the amount of injuries that they've had this season. I still expect them to add a weapon on day 2 with either this pick or their third round pick or their other third round. They've got 2 third round picks. So I expect them to add another weapon at some point. I'm going to actually add in Trey Harris here, man, as that big play weapon on the outside. I just think it makes a lot of sense to go get a Trey Harris for that team and what they're missing in that offense. Because obviously Rajee Wright is that slot yak target. Xavier Worthy is that speed, get the ball in his hands, get creative with him. Now you add in that possession outside weapon for the Chiefs and Mahomes. So this is our draft of what I would do. So I'm the only person to blame here. You can come straight at me and say, G-Sling, you are freaking crazy, man. And I don't care what words you use. But anyway, this is the draft. Let's go ahead and recap everything up here. I'll let you take a chance if you're skipping ahead, if you just want to see the picks, etc. I understand, time's limited and all those kind of things. Yeah, I don't always want to hear myself. I certainly don't want to hear myself blab. But anyway, yeah, if you don't want to hear me blabbing on, etc., etc., this is just kind of the overview of all the picks and what I was able to do. So definitely let me know what you think, agree or disagree. What would you do differently for each team? Because I think it's always interesting because there's just really so many options still, especially until we know free agency and what happens there. There's many ways that these teams could go. But hopefully I highlighted some players, and there's certainly other players that I'm really high on that I didn't highlight in this one too, that I think certainly can make day 2. So that's, to be TBD, and we'll continue to do that in another mock draft to kind of highlight some of those players. But this is kind of the way it fell and what I would do. So let me know. I hope you guys have a cool day. My name's G-Sling. I'm doing my thing, and I'll talk to you here soon.